now with Marcus Hoy-Peterson. Marcus, what's your actual title at Need?
So my title is Senior Director of Vision, Portfolio and Strategy. What that means is that I look after the industrial design and mechanical engineering teams, and then I work with the product strategy.
You make the stuff?
Yes, I make the stuff.
Okay, great. So we had seen this the last time at ISE under glass, right? This is the new control pad.
Yeah.
This is an MDEP-based device?
Yes.
So tell us about how you designed it and where it came from.
Yeah, so this is a 10-inch NeatPad Pro, as we call it. And I would like to sort of take you through how we thought about this thing when we started designing it.
Sure.
So I can draw a little bit for you if you want to do that. So to tell that story, I want to start with our first pad. So our first pad was an 8-inch pad, right? So if you draw a 8-inch pad or something like has rounded corners, it had a little, like the screen on the inside. Now, when we designed this, we thought a lot about the size of this thing, because 8 inches you can grab easily, move it around the table. The other thing is that this doubled as a controller and the scheduler. So what that means is that when it's on a table like that, and you have a person sitting next to it on the side of the table, we found sort of this ultimate angle of 15 degrees. So no matter what side of the table you're sitting, both people can see the screen, right? When that moves to the wall, you need to sort of move it over, and then you can mount it sideways to the wall. And now if you're standing here, some person, you can still see the screen. The next thing was that we wanted this to sell in multiple countries. Or one more thing first. So this is the reason also why our logos is on the side. So it says Neat on the side because in this orientation it's one way, on that orientation it's the other way. So we wanted to sell this thing in a lot of countries. So if we draw the thing, what it looks like from the back, you have sort of the body of the pad itself. And then we had to reserve a pretty large area for all the compliance ratings. So this goes into a ton of countries, right? So you need to have a bunch of sort of labels and icons on the back. So what it looked like was like this. So there's a border around, which is called a bump on, and this is where how it sits on the table. There's 4 mounting screws in here, and then here was all in between here. You had all of these compliance marks where you sort of wrote down all the countries. Then you had the environmental sensors and 2 microphones on each side, and on the other side you had these RGB indicator LEDs that you use when it's in as a scheduler outside. There's also a set of speakers on both sides that plays the ultrasonic pairing sound. So what changed when we moved from this to the other one is of course that the new one is bigger. So when you make a pad that is bigger, I need to roll up my sleeves a bit here, that changes a lot of things. It changes, and maybe most importantly, the ergonomics. So this is bigger, so how you handle it changes. So you need to be able to like hold it in different ways. So this you can see, you can fit your hand under and lift it. You don't do, I have big hands, so I can do this, but most people can't do this anymore, right? We also, so the bezel, and then of course 10 inches, logo still. That has sort of become our trademark, to put it on the side like that. Now, this was a perfect angle for most use cases, but we also sometimes overhead light creates reflections, that sort of stuff. So we figured out that while 15 degrees is perfect for most use cases, if you now tip this over to this angle, you get a lot steeper angle. So we wanted to keep it simple, and we figured out that we can sort of just tip the device to get multiple angles on the table, which is sort of adds a little bit of value. Another thing that has changed since we designed this pad was that you can now have e-labels. So all of these compliance marks, all of the rating labels could be moved to the screen. We also wanted to sort of increase the performance. We needed a better thermal solution, so we made the entire back chassis from metal that dissipates heat much better. And to show that off, you want to show those lovely gradients of the metal, right? And this is a trick for when you're doing your house. So we use the same thing you do in interior. So if you have a table and you have a sort of a chair going on over here, and maybe another chair over here, and the third one over there, this looks a bit messy. But if you sort of frame it by putting some sort of carpet or rug under it, it sits down, becomes much more calm. So we tried to take all of these features, compress them together to show more of the metal, and then group them inside a shape that like cleans the whole thing up. So what we did was, it's bigger of course, still square. So we found this stadium shape that we sort of used as a base. So this is tapered up and then over and then back down. And then we used this stadium shape as sort of our carpet. So we tried to place every single feature in there. So on the sides, you will find 2 metal grills where we have this is perforated. So here you have all the speakers and all the environmental sensors that solved this one and that one. Then we wanted to have a more universal mounting, so we designed our proprietary custom mounting here to handle that. And then we have these bumps, so that took away all of these holes. Then we added these bump-ons, which is where you sort of the device touches the table. And down in here you would have the I/O, so here is the Ethernet connector. And of course we need a logo. The back. Then, since this is metal, you need the cutout to place the antennas, because antennas can't see through metal. And there you have the other bump on, so it rests on that and on that. And then you have a third thing on the back here. And then you have the RGB LEDs on the side.
So it's bigger, but it's simpler.
It's bigger, simpler, and you have a much cleaner back surface. So if you now move over to the actual product here, you can see it has this wonderful coating on the front. And you see sort of this very cleaned up back surface that sort of looks like my drawing, right?
I think you did great. You have to sign it for us.
So, of course I can. So here you have a sort of a cover that you can lock down the...
one connector PoE.
Yeah, one connected cable PoE. USB-C is for debug. So this is sort of the base install way. So now it gives you this 15-degree angle. If you want the other options here, you have this magical piece of plastic, this little guy. So this gives you the scheduling mount. So I can now mount it to the wall like this. Screw it in here, right to the wall. If you want another angle, you can take it off, turn it around, snap it on like this. Now I have a different angle. This works also on the table, right? So I have one more angle, 2 more angle, 3 angles, and back to the 15-degree angle.
And none of them had glare. They were all glare free.
One piece of plastic, all of that.
That was harder to design than the pad.
Almost. It was sort of a tricky thing, and it's a geometry problem. So you had to make it it put a lot of constraints on other things.
So the key is that this is now shipping.
This is shipping. Demand is super high, so we're ramping up production as we speak, and we spend all this time and effort. Like, one thing is the metal for the appearance and the quality, the tactile feel of the thing, and this is what you touch in a meeting room, right? This is where you interact with anything that's neat. So we want this to be like the best it can be.
Nice job. Thank you, Marcus.
Thank you so much.